Alright guys, well today on this video we're going to be doing a final drive oil change and just have a good look around and inspect all that, have a little check of the brake pads. And the most important thing we're going to be doing today guys is the universal joint on the end of the shaft heading in towards the final drive, and give it a good inspection, clean it all up, get some grease into it, something that all the Beamer riders really need to be doing. So watch the video. I've made it pretty simple, watch it guys and go home and do it yourself. No need to take it to an expensive dealership, just do it yourself. Okay, well let's look at how clean we've got that. Look at that, moving freely. There's no movement in it, it's great. We've got that all cleaned up. It's moving good, but I want to pump some real grease right deep into it. So what we're going to do is get the hairdryer and heat all this unit up, and then we'll put the molly grease on, and that should penetrate and get a little bit more grease in around those needle bearings within the uni joint. Because this shaft and uni spline are all one piece, we've got to pay a lot of attention to this, because you can't replace these uni joints, which is really stupid. So you've got to buy a whole shaft, which is pretty smart by the economic engineers in BMW. Hum hum hum. So we'll grease up that spline, but let's heat this up, get that done. So now we'll just really silicone spray up in the shaft, in the casing, all around this uni joint guys, liberally. We really want to get any of this crap out of here. All right, that uni joint's got no play, so that's fantastic. Really work it in, working the spline, and then of course down in the final drive unit as well. Get that up in there. Yeah, looking really clean, looking awesome. So I don't have a heat gun, so we'll use a hairdryer. This will really get that metal nice and warm, just enough to maybe push a bit of grease into those bearings areas. I bet no one's seen anyone doing this before, eh? Yeah, just a little trick my mate told me. So this is the stuff. This will really penetrate deep in. Alright, just put it in there like that. And we're just going to go around one by one and heat this up. Any excess, I'll just whack it on there for now. See it, but we've worked a lot of grease in here, and it's become like, it almost becomes like a solution. And so look at that, it's really freed up this bearing. So this little trick, it's worked. All right, so you just keep moving it around, you keep forcing more grease in there with the heat gun or your hairdryer, and I tell you what, wow, what a difference. All right, all greased up and ready to connect together and redo the final drive oil. Fantastic. Now before I reattach it, I've actually lined it all up, lifting the main shaft as you put the rear spline from the final drive into it. Just get it connected, and what I find make it easier, I just spin my wheel disc and then it just slots in, get it lifted up, put my bolt in. Now I just want to do a test spin of the shaft, and I tell you what, she feels smooth as silk. So what I'm going to do now also, just as a little extra, I'm going to run the heater on that again and just try and get a little bit more grease in. The more the better. You'll be amazed. Yeah, I know they're a sealed bearing. Look, there's no movement. Feels really nice and tight, but that is gliding on that shaft really smooth. Just make sure you clean your brake disc as well. Really make sure you got your brake disc. There's no grease on your brake discs. And yeah, that's looking good. I might even just smear a little bit more on there, but it's turning the grease. It won't destroy the grease. Grease will still have its properties. So this is fantastic. Now before putting back your rubber boot in, give it a really awesome clean, and then what I do is I spray all the internal of this with silicone spray. So that's going to be another water dispersant. But what I'm going to do before I attach this in here, I'll drop that bolt, and I'm actually going to run silicone around that point on each side before I put it in, just as an extra protection. Now I actually have a crack in the front one, so I've actually on the inside filled that with moly grease, but what I'm now will do is I'll run silicone over the top of that. In about another month or two, I'm going to pull the whole shaft out, and I'll re-put a new boot in, just go over everything again. I'm a bit pedantic with this thing because I've had one on my old 1150 go bang on me. The uni joint collapsed, and that's a pretty deadly situation. I got lucky. So it's well worth the time to go over this and really have a good look. Alright guys, now before I actually put the rubber boot back in here, on that side there and on this side here, I ran a layer of this Sikka-Seal, just as an added protection to keep the moisture out of there. So we're ready to now get that in. That'll take overnight to cure properly, but it's going to provide a really good seal in here and keep that moisture out. So we'll now put the final drive fluid in with a syringe. Now make sure from the bottom of the final drive plug that you clean all that crud out of there from the magnetic area. There's one piece that's already come out. Let's do a bit more, eh? I find I get my paper in there like that. I get a little screwdriver and just push it around in there. Oh, look at all that crud. Look at that. Look at that stuff. So if you don't think this magnet does its job, look at that. Brilliant. Brilliant. Alright guys, we're just drawing our final drive oil into a syringe to then put into the speed sensor. Just go nice and slow. What I do is I write down the millage as I put it in, the moment I've just finished, otherwise you'll lose count. So that's 160 mil so far. We need to put in 220 mil. Alright guys, so when you put this sensor back in, you want to feed the sensor from this side and bring it through here. Put that nut in first and then move across and put that nut in, and then of course put your brake sensor bracket, which goes here onto the rear of the final drive housing. That keeps it away from the disc. So tighten them up, both of those. Now just make sure, guys, that when you're tightening up that one there, just use a screwdriver to keep that little locking pin in when you tighten that up. Make sure you got that locking pin in that recess. Make sure they're both done up, and now we'll lock this all off.